Time to get caught up again. Here are 19 reasons to read You Like It Darker. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dave Musson. This is the place where I talk to you about all things Stephen King. And this video kills two birds with one stone, because if you're a regular around here, you'll know that I do a monthly book special. This video is that special. And as you already know by now, it means we're all caught up in my 19 Reasons to Read series. So I'm covering You Like It Darker, King's collection of short stories from 2024. And that means that at the time of releasing this video, at least, I've given you 19 reasons to read every single one of his books. And if you haven't seen any of those other videos before, why not check out the playlist? They're all there, like I said, just waiting for you to enjoy. Now, this will be my regular 19 reasons treatment, and for a short story collection, that means a few reasons to read this book, but also my ranking of the stories. And I'll do the ranking of my stories after the spoiler alert, because there might be things in there that would potentially ruin a first-time read for you. Less so with the story collections, but I'm just very conscious of people who like to go in completely blind for things. So if you don't want to know anything about the stories, you can stop after my initial reasons for you to pick up this collection. If you want a more in-depth review, but still spoiler-free, from when this book came out, I will pop the link up there to my video that I put out when the thing first got published, and you can go and check that one out as well. And if you've read You Like It Darker, let me know what you think and let me know your favourite story in there. Sound good? Cool. Okay. Before we get started, just lend me a few more seconds, or skip it using the timestamp, but just, if you're willing, lend me a few more seconds for a couple of very quick plugs. Okay then, things I like to plug, the links are all in the description, and those things are my range of Stephen King themed band shirts, like my Misery Run DMC mashup. That's the kind of thing. Also, my award-winning collection of short stories by me from 2024, Once More Around the Sun. If you like King, you'll like these stories. They're just King with a British twist, I guess. Also, my Stephen King trivia book from 2022. And if you enjoy what I'm doing on this channel, you can become a constant viewer, get extra content, get early access to regular content, and support me directly. Any of that would be much appreciated. But if nothing else, I really love the fact that you're here watching. And hey, maybe consider subscribing or telling a friend so that more people find these videos. Right, let's get on with the show. So as I said, we're going into You Like It Darker. We're wrapping up, at least for now, the 19 Reasons to Read series. There's going to be reasons to read this book and my ranking of the stories from least favourite to most favourite. Don't forget to let me know your favourite story in this collection in the comments. But otherwise, let's get into it. Here are 19 Reasons to Read You Like It Darker. So this book is a staple in the world of Stephen King and his career. Short story collections. He's been a master of the short form for a long time, and he's been putting out amazing collections right from the start of his career. And this book continues in that long line of excellent stuff. This was his first short story collection in 9 years, because If It Bleeds was 4 novellas, not really short stories. So 9 years between Bazaar of Bad Dreams and You Like It Darker. And when I think about where I'd rank this among all of the short story collections, it's definitely towards the top end. So if you take nothing else away from this video, know this: You Like It Darker is great. 12 dark stories, all of them definitely worth reading. A few absolute bangers in there. Yeah, give it a try. So of the dozen stories that are collected in this book, 5 were being published for the first time, and pretty much all of the others had very limited exposure just by being published in magazines and the like. So it's lots of fresh stuff for you, constant readers. And it's great that King is still churning out short stories. He obviously loves doing it. And hey, let's face it, we love reading them. So the headline grabber here is Rattlesnakes, a sequel to his 1981 novel Cujo. Yeah, really. I'll talk about that a little bit more after the spoiler alert, but in a word, boom. Something I especially like about his collection is the balance of themes and styles here. We get older King being more thoughtful and introspective and retrospective, but we also still get nasty horror writer King. So these stories will warm your heart, make you think, make you feel, and also chill you to your core. Great mix. So both of the US and UK covers for this book are pretty cool. This is the UK one. It's kind of quite garish colours, but the clever use of shadows with the chairs and the toddlers here, that's a nice little nod to the story Rattlesnakes. And the US cover is a really intriguing wraparound of something that, is that an island or is it an alligator? It's an alligator. And an island. There is, of course, an audiobook for You Like It Darker. King himself reads some of the stories, and regular King audiobook narrator Will Patton does a load of them as well. I'd not heard it. I've still never done an audiobook, but I have heard good things about this one. So lastly, before spoilers, quite a lot of folk were surprised that the 2016 short story The Music Room that King wrote and published in a magazine somewhere, they were surprised that this wasn't in the table of contents for You Like It Darker. And the reason for that omission was nothing sinister, nothing worrying. It was just sheerly the fact the King forgot he had that story. He admitted as much in an interview last year, and he said that it will almost certainly be included in the paperback, which is due out in September of this year. Just another reason to get the paperback, folks. So after this point, I'm going to be going through my ranking of the short stories gathered here, and possibly saying things that might spoil a first-time read. So if you're really sensitive to stuff like that, or you don't want to take the risk, this is your spoiler alert. You can find the jump in the timestamp below to the outro, come and say bye, and then be off on your way and go and read You Like It Darker. Otherwise, stick around, because I've got a few more reasons for you to read You Like It Darker coming right up. So my least favourite story in this collection is Willy the Weirdo, which was initially published in French, and it's kind of a story about a kid and his dying weird grandpa. And it's okay, except for the fact it just feels like a lesser remix version of Grammar from Skeleton Crew. It just feels absolutely like we're getting something that we've seen before. And for me, the weakest in the collection. And I would have much rather, actually, that one been dropped out, and instead we had The Extra Hour, which was first published in 2025 in this edition of Cemetery Dance, issue 79. A much stronger short story than Willy the Weirdo, much more compelling, much spookier, and it wouldn't have been bottom of the list either. So, I mean, I'm not Stephen King, I'm not the successful author, but for me, meh. I guess the novelty of having something being published in English for the first time, kind of fun, but also big old shrug. So, my 11th favourite was The Dreamers. So this one, like big Lovecraftian vibes about sleep, about other dimensions, about weird experiments, portals, all of that kind of stuff. Great potential for sure. But as is often the way with Lovecraftian stuff, it just didn't connect for me, which is a shame. But that's how it goes. Okay, so from this point onwards, from number 10 on my list of the 12, all of these stories I like absolutely. And as we go higher up, I like them even more. But at 10 on my list is Finn, which was first released as a standalone short story as a Scribd original a few years ago. And actually, I got an advanced copy of that. You can watch my review of that elsewhere on this channel if you want a really in-depth review of Finn. So it's a kind of silly Bachman-esque story about mistaken identity, a teenager who gets abducted by a nasty man and tries to get out of that situation. It's kind of fun. Like, objectively, it's probably not that great, but I enjoyed it both times I read it. And also the fun fact about it is it's King's first story that is set in Ireland. Next up is Danny Kaufman's Bad Dream, which was previously unpublished. I should also say The Dreamers was previously unpublished as well. Forgot to tell you that. But Danny Kaufman's Bad Dream, previously unpublished. The longest thing in this book, more like a novella than a short story. And it has a great premise. We get our main character having a dream about basically discovering a body of somebody who'd been murdered. And it's so compelling that he drives to that place and finds the actual body. And then, of course, everyone's like, well, he did it. How else would he know? Like, you're going to believe that he's just dreaming that? And yet I love the idea. I think it could have been slimmed down and that would have made it stronger. It just felt like it was being stretched too much in parts for me, but still enjoyable. So next up for me was A Turbulence Expert, which was first published in the Flight or Fright collection that I have on my shelf somewhere, that King edited with Bev Vinson, who has been on this channel to talk about working with Stephen King. So if you want to listen to that, go and check it out. It's a really fun story about a guy whose job, basically, is to go on planes that are going to suffer like devastating turbulence. And basically he is there to ride it out and make sure the plane gets through and makes it home safe. And it's fun just on a sort of top level. It's kind of a quirky little Stephen King idea. But the more you think about it, at least for me, I found that like you start thinking every single time you've been on a plane, and suffered turbulence. And then you start thinking, well, maybe there was a turbulence expert on my plane. And maybe the only reason that plane landed safely was because there was a turbulence expert on there. And that's where it starts to become really freakish. Also, King doesn't fly himself these days. He's kind of afraid of flying. And I think horror writers writing about their fear is always interesting. So next up on the list for me in my ranking is Laurie, which is a story that was first published on King's website back in 2018, I want to say. I really enjoyed it the first time I read it. I really enjoyed it when I encountered it again in You Like It Darker. It's just a fun King story about an old guy who has been widowed and whose sister gets him a puppy. And he initially doesn't want the puppy. But then he kind of falls into life with the puppy, starts enjoying the dog. And then they have an encounter with an alligator. And it gets pretty fun. Really good mixture of charming and shocking and nasty and scary. Good. So next for me was The Fifth Step, which is a story rooted in addiction and recovery. So the premise is that this guy is taking his fifth step in the AA program, which is to confess all your sins and your woes to a complete stranger. Except this one has a really sick and devious twist at the end. Like, I'm talking night shift levels of naughtiness here. Just a really fun story. Short, sharp, nasty, yeah. So next up is another one of the shorter ones for me, On Slide-In Road, which is a tale about a road trip that a family takes that kind of gets into some difficulties, with the grandpa playing a really key role in the story. And this is older King working to his strengths here. He's really good at writing the old characters, but he's also really good at observing 3 generations of a family together and painting that dynamic in a realistic way that isn't all just rose-tinted. Like, this is a family that grapes up against each other, and there's a lot of unspoken stuff here that you can feel coming out from between the pages, and it's just cool to see an older character kicking ass like what happens in here. Yeah, I just enjoyed it a lot. So my fourth favourite in this one is a story that I've seen a lot of people not particularly love, but I just really dug it. It's Red Screen, which was first published as a standalone ebook release that was like a charity fundraiser from a couple of years ago. And this is King leaning into his upbringing on B-movies and pulpy cosmic horror. It feels like a little nod to Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So the premise here is basically that people are noticing that significant people in their lives are just, they're not just having a bad day. They're having like a bad week. They're just permanently having bad stuff going on. And there's just this feeling that it's a little bit more than tiredness or stress at work or anything else. It feels like something alien is going on here. And again, it's just fun. Like, I can see why people don't like it so much. It just worked for me. Got that old school short story King nastiness. Fun little twists. I'm all for it. So my third favourite is The Answer Man, which was previously unpublished. And this is a really charming story about a guy who meets this mysterious man at 3 points in his life, and he's able to ask this man questions about his own future. And you'd think that would be like some Faustian tale that would be doom-laden and just terrifying, but it's really not. It's a beautiful musing on your journey through life, and also makes you really ponder, like, what would you do differently, if anything, if you knew exactly what was going to happen in your life? Would it change your approach to the world? Would it change your outlook on life? Just a really terrific story. It's the final one in the book, I think, from memory, and it's such a fitting finale to the collection. Like, had that have been King's last book, it would have been a wonderful final story to go out on. And the story behind the story is wild. Like, King's nephew was sorting through a trunk of stuff and found a few pages of it that had been written in like the 70s and was just like, hey, Uncle Steve, like, this is good. You should do something with this. And he agreed, and he like got back into it and wrote the thing. Like, how many more great short stories are just stuffed in a trunk somewhere? I wonder if King would like to employ an intern, maybe some British guy with chunky glasses who does a YouTube channel about him. Maybe he'd like me to go over and just do that work for him. Like, I'd be keen. So my second favourite was another one of the previously unpublished ones, and that's Two Talented Bastards, which is the one that opens this collection. And I loved this so much. So there is a story within a story in this one. And in that story in the middle, I got Dreamcatcher vibes because, yeah, there's some alien shit going on, friends. But what really warmed my heart with this story was the rest of it. So there's so many King classics ticked off here. Old Dudes, Maine, Yankee mannerisms, distrust of outsiders, all of that kind of stuff. But the way King muses on creativity in this story, and not just creativity, but pursuing creativity, pursuing creative projects because they mean a lot to you. And there's a great passage where he sort of captures brilliantly how you might have a creative pursuit, so art or music or writing, and your friends and family, when they see your output, will be like, oh yeah, that's nice. And they'll sort of smile and nod and they'll move on. And, you know, the people who are closest to you should be like your biggest fans, often aren't. I found that so often with my musical pursuits, with my writing, with everything I've done. You almost feel like, unless you've got the seal of approval of an influencer from somewhere else, whether that's a social media influencer or like a traditional influencer, a journalist or something, feels like people don't take you seriously. Even if your art is of a good standard, like you'll never be as good as something that somebody else has deemed worthy. And that just really spoke to me. And it's King revisiting an idea that he has always had, that he has the paranoia about his own talent. He's like got this idea that he's going to wake up one day and he's back in the 70s and this was all a dream and he's got to go back to work as a teacher and the writing thing just never happened. Like, I just love it. I love how open he is about his anxiety of that and how brilliantly he captures what it means to pursue creative hobbies. And yes, he's in a privileged position that he's the best-selling author in the world, but he also taps into something that me, who's sold maybe 100 books, also feels, and I can't help but admire that. But my favourite story in You Like It Darker, another previously unpublished one, it's the aforementioned Rattlesnakes, which was the sequel to Cujo. Comfortably my pick of the bunch here. Now, I'll lay it out for you. There's no dog in this, and that's good, because if the dog had been in this, it would have sucked. This is a really clever way of doing a sequel. We catch up with Vic Trenton in his senior years, and through his story, so he's kind of having some respite on a little Florida island, quite near to Duma Key, in fact. We learn about what happened with his relationship with Donna after the events of Cujo. And we learn how Tad is still haunting him, and we learn how that whole thing just affected his life. We also see him meet someone who has also suffered from child loss, and how those things all start merging into this story that is just a wonderful kind of reflection of loss, of grief and all of those kind of things, but also a really creepy ghost story as well. And if you're here for the scares, this story has 2 scenes in it that are some of the scariest scenes King has written in years, not just in this book, in literal years. They will imprint themselves on your brain and stay there forever. It's just wonderful. And we get the mention of Duma Key as well, in a way that makes me feel like he's got an idea for a little Duma Key short story sequel also. So all for that too. Right, there we go. 19 Reasons to Read You Like It Darker. If you've read this one, let me know what you think and let me know what your favourite story is. We're at speed on the 19 Reasons to Read, at least until this coming Tuesday, 27th of May 2025, when Never Flinch comes out. But, friends, if you're regular around here, you'll know I've already got it. I've already read it. And I will be dropping my review on publication day. Spoiler free, of course. So, yeah, we're getting extra King content this week. Thank you for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed this, and come back on Tuesday to see what I thought of Never Flinch. Bye-bye.